Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the World Through Electrospecs podcast. If you hear something that you think you would like to see from this particular episode, please feel free to check out the video version of the podcast or check out the show notes, all of which can be found at TWTEpodcast.com. Enjoy the show.
I was 16 years old and my father allowed me to go.
I was just turned 17 at the time.
I was 16.
And I was 15 years.
When they came to us, they were frightened children and had to be made into soldiers.
All right, boys, here it comes. We're in the pictures.
I gave every part of my youth to do a job.
There was a job to be done, and you just got on and did it.
Greetings, listeners that are both in black and white and color. Thank you for tuning in to the World War Through Electrospecs. My name is Caleb.
And my name is Pete.
Welcome to the show. It's kind of a weird intro. This is a little bit more of a, like you said, a somber episode of the show because we are covering They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yes.
If you haven't heard of this movie, it is, quote, a documentary about World War I with never-before-seen footage to commemorate the centennial of the end of the war.
Yeah, it's absolutely striking, breathtaking, moving. Yeah, there's just so many.
Man.
Just the way they've recovered that footage, that actual footage from that war.
I definitely, every time I watch this trailer, I feel it. You can feel it.
Yes, definitely.
So, for those who don't know, basically what this is a documentary that's getting a limited release here at the end of 2018, which makes this episode super dated, but...
Well, yeah, extremely limited. Either, all depending on editing and how this episode is released to you, it is either going to be on the day of one of the days or after one of the two dates that you'll...
Well, to pull the curtain back just a little bit, we're recording on a Sunday, and typically I like to push out our episodes on Tuesdays or Thursdays. So this will probably come out on Tuesday. That being said, depending on when you listen to this, this movie, one of the release dates was either last night or it's happening later this month, because it's a limited release in theaters only on December 17th and the December 27th of 2018. I don't know if they're planning on releasing on DVD after that. I'm assuming they will. But if they don't, then now's your chance.
Yeah, I could only hope. It's something I don't know if I'll have the chance to actually get to the theaters and see. Seeing this on a large screen would absolutely be striking. Yeah.
So that being said, maybe we should give a little bit more context for those who may not necessarily know, because I definitely didn't know until you passed this trailer on to me, Pete. Basically, what this is it's a documentary on World War One, but the way it's being handled is very different from documentaries I've seen in the past. It's being directed by Peter Jackson, and we'll written and directed by Peter Jackson. We'll jump into that a little bit deeper in a second. But basically, what him and his production crew have done is they've taken 100-year-old footage from World War One that was black and white with no audio, and they have recolored it as accurately as possible and in beautiful way. Recreated, or not recreated, but kind of revived this footage in theoretically the colors that you would have seen if you were living at the time, or if you were the cameraman behind the camera taking the footage. If you took your eye away from the view, from the view thing, and yeah. and actually looked at what you were filming, this is what it would look like. But then they went multiple steps further, and they've actually recorded Foley audio, so you can hear the guns firing, you can hear the rattle and the swishing of the gear that the soldiers are carrying on their in their backpacks, and the clanking of the metal belt buckles and straps that are all rattling around. And then they've also hired voice actors to recreate what it appears to be what the soldiers are saying in that footage, based on just kind of trying to lip read what they're saying, and creating conversations between the soldiers where you can actually hear them eating and talking to each other at a lunch table. And
see, I didn't know that they went to those lengths with the audio. That's something
you watch the trailer. The soldiers are talking to each other in the audio.
Yes.
You can hear them talking, and you can hear conversations happening, and you can hear people screaming. And I'm assuming there's probably going to be some. Yeah. It is rated R, of course. I'm assuming there's going to be some very traumatic, morbid, gruesome, not gruesome, gory stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's war. It's
yeah. Touching on that, though, one big thought that I have here on this movie, and the reason I'm looking forward to it, is being my age, and well, that's just it, basically being my age, being who I am, I guess. I never really paid a whole lot of attention in history classes. I honestly don't know much about the World War, the two major world wars that we've been through, as I almost said as a country, but just as a world, obviously, as a planet. And I do find interest in this kind of stuff. I have found interest over the years, just because I love machinery, and I love kind of scale models and stuff like that. So I am familiar with some terminologies and some uses, and I don't know what term I'm looking for, but basically the tanks and the guns and the uniforms. I'm familiar with that stuff to a certain degree, but I don't know a whole lot.
And this kind of changes, bringing that up. I kind of appreciate that. I wasn't expecting that, but it kind of. So when I was a child, I had the little plastic toy soldier figurine guys, where they had the little flat thing where you stand them up and you'd get your tanks and stuff, and you'd actually, act out those war scenes. And you kind of got to wonder, man,
how morbid were you really getting when you were doing that?
Well, yeah, what's going on there with society and culture, where, having as a toddler, as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, reenacting such horrific things that happen in our times,
change history.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking when I look at model tanks, and I look at just toys of model tanks, and
I have an affinity for warplanes. I think they're just the most amazing machinery.
these old uniforms that have cool lines and cool patches, and I have a feeling watching this movie is going to change how I look at that stuff, because currently I look at that stuff as a tank is just a giant gun in a big hunk of metal with an unstoppable set of treads on it, basically, that will run over anything in its path and destroy anything in its path. But honestly, that technology probably, I would imagine it's a very gruesome, dirty, and really, like, it's the ugly side of humanity.
Yeah.
So I think watching this movie is going to change how I look at that kind of stuff.
Right. And Peter Jackson has a way to put us in other worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're saying, this is something that you or I have never had to experience.
Time-wise, it's another world, but context-wise, compared to his other work, for some more context there, Peter Jackson is mainly, his most popular work has been, he didn't write.
Did we mention that he's directing and producing this?
Yeah, we mentioned that.
Okay,
yeah. But Peter Jackson, who is writing and directing this, he is known for his work with Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, which are a totally different fantasy world, but we get so invested and so like, he's really good at visually. Now, the stories were written, were originally written very fleshed out, but the way Peter Jackson directs the movies visually, he gets us invested into this world. So I think this is kind of mirroring that in a different way, but also in the same way, where history is already written. The things that happened in this documentary already happened. He's not necessarily writing the story that is here, but he's telling it in a way visually and thematically that hopefully would completely engulf us into it.
Finding a way to sort out this, who knows how many hours and hours and hours of footage he's reviewed and found a way to put it together in a storyline.
There was actually a statistic on that. Let me see if I can pull it up. It was in the trivia section on the IMDb page for They Shall Not Grow Old. It says and I don't know where I don't know how accurate this is or what the source is, but it says the crew reviewed over 600 hours of interviews with over 200 soldiers and 100 hours of original footage.
Wow.
For a movie, mind you, that ends up being 99 minutes long, so it's about an hour and a half. An hour and 40.
Okay, yeah.
99 minutes. So.
But they had 100 hours of footage to review.
And 600 hours of interview. Which leads me into one of my notes. If you go to the They Shall Not Grow Old actual official website, they have a description of the movie and kind of what they went through. I recommend reading that on your own, but one of the quotes that I pulled from that to read here on the official website is that they is, quote, using the voices of the men involved, the film explores the reality of war from on the front line, their attitudes to the conflict, how they ate, how they slept, and formed friendships, as well as their lives, as well as what their lives were like away from the trenches during the periods of downtime.
Oh man, that's going to be so moving.
I know,
because I can hear it now. I can hear those interviews with those soldiers, kind of telling their stories, and then teaming that up with some really striking footage, and then adding all the background sounds into it.
That's just it. I am too. Yeah. I have goosebumps right now. Unlike a TV documentary on this kind of stuff, like what you would see on National Geographic Channel or something, we're gonna get those interviews with the soldiers and with the people who are involved in this war. But then when they show the footage behind, or they kind of cut to the footage of some context of what they're talking about in the interview, we're not just going to get some black and white footage that's all shaky and choppy and has some real bad film grain. We're going to get a color image that looks realistic with some voice acting that makes it sound like it makes it seem like I don't remember where it was, but it somewhere on one of the things I was researching mentioned that it feels like it was recorded yesterday.
Wow.
And that's... Now, you can obviously see some problem. I mean, the color isn't completely saturated, but they're working with some really old footage, but they've done a fantastic job.
I think, let's just say, if our technology was at a point where it could push these things to look like they were recorded yesterday,
At that point, we're just walking into a hologram simulator.
I don't think it would. I don't think it would hold that same impactfulness of, wow, this is actually that footage. So having it look the way it does, even though it's been restored and added color and all this other stuff, we still have that grainy and grittiness, from.
It still looks a little uncanny.
Yeah.
Which makes us feel, it reminds us of what we're looking at being the real thing. Now, I'm sure they could make a realistic documentary where they basically took all these shots and recreated them shot by shot with actors and modern cameras, but it wouldn't have the same effect.
No.
When you see blood, or when you see somebody being, there was a scene in the trailer, where a bunch of soldiers were taking what looked like a wrapped body and putting it in a trench or a hole of some sort, probably burying them on the battlefield, most likely. That's a real body. That's a real person that died for a real cause, and that's
right.
That's going to be some powerful stuff.
Yeah, and next to the powerful stuff, there was definitely some candid moments that were caught, and to see the smiles on the soldiers and see them goofing around, you connect with them. You really become like, they're
trying to have fun while being faced with something that's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, they almost had to. They almost had to find a way to lighten their moments,
One of my favorite shots of the trailer being, I'll see if I can find it here, being the one where there's just a giant crowd of soldiers running towards a couple kegs and a giant sign that says beer.
Yeah.
Because who knows when the last time was that they had beer,
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time finding it here, but
yeah, I know which one you're speaking of. I think I've watched this trailer way too many times. Probably.
I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
But I love that. Just that mix between kind of the fun, like, oh yeah, they're real people, and they're trying to. I guess. And
there was another neat one too, where they're kind of walking around. This one right here, where he kind of taps the guy in the head and looks to the camera.
Bunk. Yeah.
Yeah. And he turns and looks at the camera with a smile.
Yeah.
That was great.
Bunch of real guys doing real things and putting their lives on the line while also just goofing around every now and then.
Yeah. Such adversity they had to deal with, and
I'm just gonna go ahead and let this play in the background while we're
talking. While we kind of chat a bit.
I guess we should have mentioned it. We should have mentioned it at the top of the show. But it's kind of if you can't handle this kind of stuff, the trailer isn't rated R. The movie is rated R. But I mean, if you have a hard time stomaching war footage and real dead bodies, there's some of that in the trailer. So just if you're listening to the audio version and you're thinking about jumping on and watching the video version of this podcast instead, be aware of that, please.
And so many of our friends and your friends and our viewers and listeners' friends have served throughout the decades and prior to us, and they will after us. And just to let them know how much we respect their service and appreciate everything they sacrifice, it's just something I definitely wanted to mention. And there's just it's going to be it's a difficult topic. It's a difficult subject to talk about. So,
touching on that and kind of retouching on something we mentioned earlier too. I think the fact that I don't know much about the two world wars because I didn't pay attention that much in history class. I have an understanding of the amount of respect that I should have for it, but hang on, what was that? That was weird. There's something weird. I think it's just in the coloring. This element of the tank almost looks digital, but I think it's just because of the way the coloration works. Yeah, but the way it moves around and the way the contrast is, it looks like it's digital, doesn't it?
Yeah. That was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. But I think what I was saying was I think watching this is going to give me. I'm looking forward to it just because, kind of like earlier this year, the movie that came out, First Man, that gave me a better. Although I was a huge fan of NASA and space exploration, that movie gave me a better understanding of what Neil Armstrong went through and what his life was like, kind of surrounding that whole event of being the first man to walk on the moon.
Yeah.
I think this is going to do a similar thing, if not have even more of an impact like that on me, where being kind of not necessarily in the dark, but ignorant, definitely ignorant on the topic. I think watching this watching this movie is this documentary is really going to give me a better understanding and a higher respect for.
That's a great statement, because I didn't really put much thought into that. How this can add to the history books, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I think, unfortunately, just because of the context, I think a lot of people my age and younger probably aren't even going to be interested in going to see it in the theaters. But
yeah, that's the tough thing. I
think those who do, I mean, it's probably not even going to get that crowd of people who just kind of wander in because they don't know what it's about, because it's going to be pretty obvious. It looks like something that most people would think would be boring. But I think those who do go just to kind of have an open mind and open up their eyes a little bit, kind of like what I'm doing, and even people who are doing that a little bit less, with a little bit less thought process involved, I think it's definitely going to really open people's eyes a little bit. I think it's really going to help. It's going to help me with my ignorance a little bit, as well as help others as well.
Yeah.
And for those that already understand it, I think it's going to be a great way for them to kind of not necessarily refresh their memory, but just enjoy seeing, maybe not enjoy, but see this in a different light.
Yeah, I know what you meant there, for sure.
People who have been studying this for years, this is a way to see it in a different way.
Right. And they couldn't have titled it any better, I don't think, because that title does exactly what probably the intention and the hopes are. Yeah.
They shall not grow old.
Exactly.
Man.
So no matter how much time goes by, they'll never be forgotten or left, you know.
So from a technical aspect, I think the
timeless.
The color is awesome. I think everything they've done with this movie is awesome looking. I feel like the 3D is going too far, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think they needed to do this in 3D. I think that's just a little bit of a cash grab because you can get a little bit extra money for a 3D ticket.
Well, 3D, is it really a 3D film, or were they?
It's not. The only 3D films that actually look good are filmed with cameras that shoot footage specifically for 3D shots.
So I guess that's what I'm asking. Is it? So are we expected to go and wear 3D glasses to view this?
If you go to the 3D viewings, yeah, because the trailer says that it's available in color and 3D. That's what I'm saying. I think the 3D version of the film is completely unnecessary. I'm
just wondering if the 3D was just to add visual depth to what black and white flattens. So that's kind of what I was.
Get what you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
because if you look at the black and white footage we're watching here, it does seem kind of flat. But as soon as you pop some color in there, things become.
I think a good way to find out would be to go to the Fathom Events website where they're selling tickets and see if you.
All right, check on that really quick then while I continue.
Yeah, if they offer separate tickets if they sell one type of ticket.
That last scene we just looked at, a goat with a bunch of soldiers. That's just like. So
yeah, definitely. So the theaters that it's being sold, the tickets are being sold for. There are normal events, and then there are tickets for normal events, and there are tickets that are being sold specifically for 3D with a 3D label on it. So it's definitely a separate experience, which I think is completely unnecessary for something like this.
I would agree. Yeah,
it feels like an extra cash grab, at least on my part. At least what I feel like it is, or in my opinion, because. They can sell a couple extra bucks on tickets for a 3D experience, and it looks like at least in the theaters that showed up on my list, it's like 90, maybe 85% 3D viewings versus 2 normal viewings.
I would actually not argue that, but maybe consider the fact of a 3D experience might give us more of immerse just immerse us more into the moment, perhaps.
Possibly, but I don't know. I feel like they're already doing so much. It seems like an extra, like, yeah, while we're at it, we'll make a 3D too. Because a 3D also isn't that great for movies that weren't shot with a 3D camera, and especially older footage like this, I'm sure is even worse. You can tell when they've ran it through those 3D filters and added the 3D effects post. You know, it doesn't look as good 3D as a normal 3D movie that was shot that way. So it feels
odd.
I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but it feels
just doesn't. It feels out of place. It doesn't feel
not grotesque, but like when you engorge in too much food. You know, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but it just feels like
just
one more piece. You know,
yeah.
We'll just throw one more slice of pie on.
Interesting.
It doesn't seem like it sweetens the deal. It seems like it just adds too much.
Now I actually want to see it in 3D just to kind of.
I don't. I want to see the normal one.
Yeah. See, I want to see it in 3D now just to see how that, whether it immerses me or distracts me. Yeah.
So are you planning on going to see it then?
Well, we'll see.
I definitely want to.
It's in some theaters near me. Those of you who don't know, I am in a small town, but a half an hour away is a big town. So we'll see. We'll see if it's in some theaters around, and then finding the timing to do so is a whole nother, challenge, because it's literally 2 days. It was
2 days, not back to back.
17th.
Two separate days. Beginning of the
10
month
days
and
apart.
End of the month. Yeah. I'm definitely not going to be able to see it tomorrow.
December 17th. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm planning on going to see it on the 27th. So if you and I do end up going, I'm going to see it in 2D regardless.
Okay.
So that could be interesting. Maybe if you and I do end up going see it separately on the 27th, if you go see the 3D version and I go see the 2D version, we record an episode kind of giving our thoughts on the movie afterwards. We can talk about the differences or how we felt with the 2D versus the 3D.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to see what's around near me. I'll have to check it out. Well, so there, quite a different review of a different approach.
Yeah, that was meant to be a shorter episode. Hopefully it was a shorter episode, but so what are your closing thoughts then? Maybe those were our closing thoughts.
I think maybe those were our closing thoughts. It's going, no matter what, 2D, 3D, I just think it's going to be an absolutely moving experience, and that's the only way I think I can explain it.
It's definitely going to be it's going to
stunningly transformed.
Feels warm and cold at the same time as far as emotionally,
yeah,
just because of the context, but or the subject matter, but also the way it's handled. And I don't know, I think it's going to be really good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think leaving the theater is going to be interesting to see how I feel and what I think.
So let's open up the floor to the listeners then. What do the listeners think? Those of you who are listening to the show or watching the show, hop on, go to TWTEpodcast.com and you can find the video version, leave a comment there, or even just leaving a comment on when we post the link to this on our Facebook page or our Twitter or whatever. Definitely let us know what you think, and if you're looking forward to this, if you do go see it, if you listen to this show after the movie has already been released and you've seen the movie, definitely jump in and let us know what you thought of it. And then if we do a review after the movie, after we see the movie, maybe we'll pull some comments out and talk about some of the things that other people have said about it. But we definitely want to hear from you, see what you think. Pete and I have our own separate websites. You can find us on those separate websites that I will link in the description of the just every version of the podcast that's out there, the video and the audio versions. You can find the show at TWTE Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as the World. You can search for the World Through Electrospecs on YouTube. For the video version, or you can just go, like I said, to twtepodcast.com and you can find the audio and visual video versions of this show and all of our other shows as well. You can check us out on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and pretty much anywhere else you get a podcast. Feel free to leave us a review. It definitely helps us out, and we love to hear from people and see what people think of the show. So, man, I just powered through that one.
Yeah. Well done.
that being said, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening, and look forward to seeing you at the theater.
Definitely. May peace and reverence be with you.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for listening. Bye.